Thank you, Ian Smith, lawyer. If we want to go back and talk past long time ago histories, still in play at the moment. But I know you as being part of the legal director of the PCA. You were a whole lot more for the PCA in terms of my short time when I was playing in the UK. You're now commissioner. I have to read this because these are some big words here. There's like 4 syllables in some of these. Commissioner of the ESports Integrity Commission. So you're the commissioner of the commission. I love that. You're the head of integrity for the PGA European Tour. That's cool. And former FICA. So that's the Federation of International Cricketers Association.
That's it. Yeah.
And you
associations.
Associations. My apologies. Associations. And you were chief operations officer for them up until the 2015 World Cup. Now that is a wide-ranging. That is a envious list of jobs you're doing right now and jobs you have done. Without sounding too cliche, where did that start? What was the first bit that then moved you into and onward?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, obviously being a sports fan and a bit of a really crappy sportsman, and having at least enough self-awareness to realize that I was never going to be the guy who played at that level.
Did you not have that? Did you not go to the right school in South Africa? Is that right?
I really did, but the guys were so damn good, and I had so many other interests. I don't know whether I had the talent, to be honest, because I basically just flitted around between all the stuff that I love doing, which is a pattern I've kept up my whole life, to be honest. I really just pursue what interests me. And as much as I love playing cricket, I love my running, I love surfing, I loved all of these things, and I did them a lot. I was never good enough at any of them to really excel. And I don't think I really wanted to. Luckily, what I found out was I was a better lawyer, or at least, what some would say, I'm a better bullshit artist than I was a cricketer or any of those things. And so I wanted to be involved.
Lawyers always win, though. No matter what happens, lawyers always win.
They're always the guy. Yeah,
these 2 lawyers. Well played.
But exactly, and that's why I kind of went for that. I kept my association with sport, even though I was an employment lawyer in Bristol. It coincided with David Graveney still heading the PCA, happening to live in Bristol. I just bugged him until he, kind of gave me a job, and I grew up with the PCA as it went from a 40 grand a year, 1 dinner a year organization to a multi-million-dollar operation. Running the England team, running all of these really cool services for the members, and I was just lucky to be along for the ride.
Just so the PCA Players Cricket Association, that's the England and Wales. It's basically the union for the cricket players in England and Wales. There's New Zealand Players Association. There's a CPA. They all go by slightly different names, but you're basically our union representative, if you like, for all of us.
That's right.
All of us cricket players.
From the mid-90s onwards.
Wonderful gig.
Sorry?
Wonderful gig.
It was an amazing gig. I was still in private practice when it started, and I was running a sports unit that covered football, rugby, Formula One, motorsport, a whole range of things. I was a partner and head of a sports law department. But my personal passion was always cricket. So I concentrated the vast majority of my fee-earning work in cricket for the PCA, and then went to founded FICA along with Richard Bevan and Tony Irish and Paul Marsh and all these guys back in about 2000. I was there. I was literally the only lawyer, although Tony Irish is a lawyer, involved in that setup, and just grew up. So right place, right time, a lot of luck, like all of us have enjoyed in our lives who've achieved anything. It's been really good fun.
Do you still call it luck, or do you call? See, some things I will say lucky, but most of the things, because luck has sometimes that much. I use the word fortunate a lot, and I deliberately use the word fortunate a lot. Do you still call it luck, or is there an element that you're underplaying your own hand there, and you should be calling it fortunate?
Yeah, it's definitely a combination. I think it's luck, fortune, and work. And I made a very deliberate decision in the late 90s to pursue a sports law career. And I went about that very deliberately, looking at who I could act for, what work I could do for them. As long as I kept up my employment law practice and fulfilled my targets and did all the stuff the firm asked of me, they also gave me freedom to pursue the other stuff, the pure sports work. And so the luck in that was being at the right firm at the time. The fortune was other things happening around my relationship within cricket that I'd already established earlier. And the hard work was being very deliberate about it, having a plan, having a strategy, and pursuing that very, single-mindedly, really. So it was all three things. But I wouldn't underplay luck as much as perhaps you do, because I was lucky to be born into the circumstances I was born in. I was lucky to go to the school I went to. There was a lot of luck along the way, a lot.
I appreciate that, and I will always say I got born lucky by being born in New Zealand. And there's that. You're not too old from the Pearl Jam. There's the song White Male American, WMA. I won the lottery by being born. It's a song called White Male American, and there's your luck. But did you choose that initial firm? That wasn't luck that they got you. You chose them deliberately. So you said that was lucky. Yeah. Now that turns into a little bit more calculation than being lucky. Yeah, they hired you. Yeah, but you then obviously deserve to get hired. So that turns into you were fortunate to have that.
Yeah. And I love the fact that all of these random elements as well as deliberate elements combine to kind of put you where you are, because we're faced with these sliding door moments literally all the time. And my decision to leave private practice and go into the PCA full time was the most impulsive thing that's ever happened to me. I was up in the London office. Richard Bevan, who was running the PCA at the time, had been asking me for about 2 years if I would, come in-house. And I was basically saying, you guys can't afford me. I was earning really good money. And then I'd become a partner in a law firm down in Bristol, and we had, a successful unit. But when you're a partner, you're not as much of a lawyer anymore, because you're spending all this time managing people. And I really hated that. And my partners wanted me to move to Southampton. Now, with the best will in the world, right? And I don't mean to insult anybody. I hate Southampton as a city. I used to have to go down there like nearly every week, and I really, really disliked it. So when my partners are saying, we want you to move to Southampton to run the sports practice down there, I was, no way, and the pressure kept building. And one day, I was walking down the road giving some advice to Richard Bevan. I remember exactly where I was at the time, and he was going, Smithy, you should come and work for us. And I said, I will. And I could hear him draw breath in at the other end, like, what? But I did. I resigned that day. And, it's been a very interesting journey.
So your time with the PCA, you met obviously a ridiculous amount of players, amount of people involved in cricket in the UK. And you were part of it for a long time. Now, what was the bit that held you? Obviously, love of cricket, sure. Can't play it, so I may as well have something to do with it. That sort of philosophy. Now, what kept you there? Because there's an element that for some lawyers you conquest something and it's time to move on and conquest something else. What kept you there for such a long time?
Basically, that kind of human interest element of it and the variety, because firstly, when you work in sport, and you've been in that situation more or less all your life, is that it doesn't matter how much hero worship there is and admiration for guys' talent, is that when you're in there and you get to know them as human beings, you realize that there are the full range of people in those dressing rooms as there are in other life. There are great guys, there are dickheads, there are, you know, people of amazing achievement even outside what they do in the field, great thinkers, and guys who are as thick as a plank. And it's a beautiful tapestry of people. But the best thing about that was I admired these guys and still do. I admire people with your talent who make something of that talent, because I've seen so many guys with talent throw that away, or ignore it, or make bad choices. And, you know, for the guys who stick with it, who achieve, I have a lot of admiration, but I also, from a personal perspective, love the fact that my job was different every single day. I never knew whether I'd get that 3 o'clock in the morning phone call from the Caribbean going, Smithy, I've been photographed pedaling a pedalo around the bay. And I think there's going to be some news in the papers tomorrow. Or, you know, Smithy, we've just seen the front page of the News of the World for tomorrow morning. This is 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and there's 8 pages on the Pakistan team fixing a match at Lord's. What do we do? Though, you know, imagine that kind of job. It's like a dream, you know, for a fan and a lawyer and a multi-potentialite, which is what I call people like me who are basically scatty in their interests.
Love it. So I love diving into people, because that's what I want to do, and this is a place where I want to end up doing and diving in, and I just picked up on some of your language just before. You said you admired and the cricketers that had put everything to one side to achieve what they were. Some of them were smart, not so smart. Some of them were super talented. Some of them found it, gritted all the way, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Do you do that to yourself? Because you put the mirror back in front of EMT Smith and go, yeah, I did that as well. Do you ever sit back, relax, and go, geez, damn it, I did all right?
Yeah, look, in recent years, yes, I've become a lot better at self-compassion, self-love, recognizing that I'm okay, I'm enough, you know, because when you get stuck in that...
The change of using the word lucky to fortunate, maybe, is part of that?
Yeah, it is. And this is... And realizing that that the deliberate efforts that I made paid off, that the sacrifices that I deliberately made paid off. But the biggest difference is giving up on ambition. And I'll tell you what that means to me, because ambition is a curse, right? Because nothing ever satisfies it, because every goal you set turns out to just be another foothill with another mountain in front of it. So you peak this thing and you go, hey, I made it. Isn't that amazing? And then you look up and go, shit, there's another damn hill, you know? And it never ends, because you keep setting yourself these goals with the view to, if I achieve this, I'll be happy. If I achieve this, I'll have reached the level I wanted to achieve. And you can't go through life always looking at the future for your happiness and satisfaction, because if you can't find it now, apart from the little spike of joy you get with your achievements, you're not going to find it in the future either. And it took me 53 years to work that out.
So here's something that is a little bit, I think you'll understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna run with, you were not certainly weren't the best sportsman in your school.
No.
Okay. No,
safe to say.
Safe to say, and same for me as well. Not the best sportsman in school. I'm going to go with, you were all right academically, but you may not have been quite at the top academically.
Yeah, no, I did all right. Yeah.
You did all right. But yeah. So, but you don't end up where you are unless other people drop out. You still there? Oh, internet. Okay, hold on. We've got a little internet bother. Okay, so you don't get to the top.
Yeah, there we go.
Unless you don't get to the top unless other people drop out. And so I have this small little thing that I do to some of my friends who were a lot better at sports than me. They were superbly, supremely talented, didn't have that one thing that who knows what it is, that to this day, I still buy them a beer. And I thank them and I say, thank you for stopping playing, because you gave me a career. Now that sounds really selfish and that sounds really egotistical, but in the same stage, you don't get to where you don't get to where you want to get to if you fizzle out, if you let it fall away. So you've stuck at it longer than most, and you now reap the rewards. But brilliantly said, you weren't happy with each little foothill.
Yeah, we weren't. But that's right. I mean, it was the point at which I gave up those ambitions in favor of being happy today, to being happy now, to being satisfied with now, to feeling like I was enough now. That my wisdom, the best time, and in fact the only time to look for wisdom is now, because otherwise your life is always in some kind of limbo, looking for some future thing, and I spent 30 years in that kind of vein, and I'm grateful to escape it. But what you said about these other guys, that really rings true with me in this sense, right? So I run when I'm fit, which obviously given the state I'm currently in is not the case, but generally I run quite long distances, right? I do ultra marathons and trails, and I run with a couple of friends who I regularly do these races with. And so you're talking anything from, say, 36, 37 miles through to 70, 80, 100 miles. And all the two guys I'm thinking of in particular, who are definitely better runners than me. If we were to run a half marathon tomorrow or a full marathon, they would definitely beat me. But they have never beaten me in an ultra. And the reason is not because I'm a better runner than them, it's because I always just keep heading towards the finish, and they tend to give into the feeling of fatigue and pain far more quickly than I do. I find that if pain comes on slowly, I can put up with more or less anything. Whereas, because that's my experience, I've been doing it for a long, long time, and I know that you're always going to go through a bad patch, but the bad patch will always end. It always does, as long as you can tell the difference between an injury and fear and fatigue. Because obviously with an injury you got to stop, right? But with fatigue, if you fuel up properly, you rest, you carry on. I'm good at that.
Now is that something you've always had, or is that something you've learned by looking at successful cricketers? Because there's no bowler that played a day without a niggle, a twinge, some sort of pain. Is that something you've always had, or is that something you've gone, I can work this, I can make this work for me?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think that there's degrees of ability to endure pain that are inherent in you for whatever reason, right? So when I was young, in my early 20s, I ran the Comrades Marathon because that's what you do in South Africa. I grew up in Durban. I went to school in the middle of the race at Bothas Hill, and I went to university in Pietermaritzburg. So by the time I was in my second year of my LLB in Maritzburg, and some guy said in February, hey, we should run Comrades, I was like, yeah. At that point, having run 16 kilometers in my life, my longest distance, and I was agreeing to, at the end of May, run 90 kilometers. So I was like, okay.
Comrades is 90 kilometers.
Yeah, about 55-mile race between Durban and Pietermaritzburg, and it goes in alternate directions every year. And I without understanding what that meant, I entered it, and I ran my first marathon a month later. Terribly. It was awful. I was in shocking pain. But what I found was I was quite good at enduring that pain, in keeping going. So I learned my natural physical limitations, but then I learned from the people around me, because throughout university, throughout army, throughout my career, I've been surrounded by elite level sportsmen. Just that's the environment I've always been in. I looked after a lot of rugby players when rugby went professional in the mid-90s. I represented most of the French players, most of the South African players that came over and worked in the UK. And I saw guys like you guys, particularly fast bowlers, right? There's no way that a professional rugby player is not in pain before he even goes on the field, right? They're just always carrying pain. And the way in which those guys cope with that, I think the pain that you guys put up with on the physio table on a daily basis is more than most people could endure. I used to get a lot of physio from cricket physios while I was hanging around the ground during matches.
Yeah, it's brutal. You're not one of those guys that's on the table when they shouldn't be. You're one of those batsmen that's
always
on the table. You're like a batsman. Get off! You're a batsman.
Exactly, that was me. I'd be there getting treatment for my running pain.
I got some shin splints. My calves are a bit.
And then you guys would come in and go, I've got real pain.
Yeah,
no way.
They put the elbow in your glute and then you got off and you're like, thanks very much.
It was bloody painful, man. And I would watch you guys getting this treatment multiple times a day, every day of a match, and between. I just think, I don't know how you put up with it, because I feared it. It was that painful. So I learned.
You reckon that influence, I'm going to call that an influence on you, you reckon that influenced you, changed part of your psychology?
It really did, because because I looked at, and I remember in particular a session up at Loughborough with the England team after the 2005 Ashes victory, when there was that big transition in the team before they went to the disastrous following tour when Fred was captain. But that transition, and there were guys coming in at that point like Jimmy Anderson and people, and so I would be hanging around and see these guys doing their bleep tests and their all of this stuff, and then going for physio and treatment, and I'd look at the shape their feet were in, the number of surgeries, the scars, and it's thinking, how the hell do you keep doing this? This is how much can you enjoy something enough to put up with this level of discomfort all the time? And you know better than me the answer.
Oh, sheesh, all right. I need to keep my feet still. This is something that I haven't shared with a lot of people, because it's an opinion that could be seen as flippant in terms of the seriousness of what I'm saying. But I can judge this on me, if you like. I have a feeling that bowling and doing that and having bleeding toes and raw ankles and etc. Are you still there? Because you're frozen. Ian, are you still there? Oh.
A little bit more.
Okay, not without technical problems. What would it be? Some sort of a podcast, videocast across many miles when there's no airplanes in the sky, so there can't be any internet signal, because they take the internet signal with them. Something like that.
Well, you're speaking for New Zealand internet in that sentence. My experience.
Jaws 3D came out last week. Leave us alone, right? I cannot make some Okay, so just going back to that, this maybe, I don't say it flippantly, and I speak for myself as opposed to speaking for anyone else. But there's a large part of me that thinks that bowlers or whoever and whatever they do, when they do something that causes them pain, there's an element of that is their own personal self-harm. And I say this in a way that, look, I know way more of us than we'll ever admit have problems with anxiety, with depression, with OCDs, with levels of Asperger's and levels. And no one ever suffers one without another. There's always two illnesses in there. There's always at least a couple of illnesses and one feeds the other. So an anxiety feels the depression feels. So
that's exactly my experience of the environment you spent your professional cricket career in.
There's a big element of my psyche where, let's say, instead of cutting ourselves, instead of making and creating cuts and wounds and having that, I think people talk about that as a high, that feel that they can feel something. I have a slight suspicion, with anecdotal evidence, because it can only be that I was a self-harmer. And I say that with the absolute respect to the profession of psychology and people that deal and diagnose these scenarios, is that I hated bowling painfully, but I knew it was going to hurt, and I knew some days it was going to hurt and I was going to cry. I would go back into the changing rooms and I would pull my jumper over my head and I would cry because I was in so much pain. But I kept bowling, and there's this part of me that says, do you know what? There's an element that it's painful and it's worth it, and it makes me feel different, and I'm going to get something out of this. And so, you talk about your marathon running, 90 kilometers, and your big those things. There's an element, and I'm not going to project upon you, but there's an element that, gee whiz, to feel alive, some of us do some extraordinary things that take us to some extraordinary places in terms of management of emotions, pain, and then we try and have conversations with people as well, and we try and be humans on top of all of it.
I didn't though. I'm with you on this, but I didn't for 30 years talk to anybody about this, because I managed my mental health through my running in a completely solitary way, right? So what you were measuring in terms of the pain you experienced, and I do think that many of your fellow, particularly bowlers, measured their effort by the pain, measured their contribution by how much pain they put themselves through, justified that in their head, and I saw this. But in the same way for me, last January 2019, I injured myself quite badly, tore my medial meniscus, and there'd been a long recovery, misdiagnosis, all the usual, right?
Sorry, Ian.
I wasn't able to run.
Sorry, Ian, you did that run?
No, I couldn't.
You can't
do. For the first time in my life, what was, I didn't have access to my most important management strategy for my own well-being. I put on weight, still am, because I've only been running again for the last, about 6 weeks, and I can only run a little bit. But what I didn't realize was just how important it was to me to have those times on the trails, on the road, for my own well-being, I kind of ignored it. I got frustrated, but it definitely came home to roost, and I had to find other strategies, other ways of dealing with these things, because that was taken away from me. And that adjustment period, I've likened to what I saw you guys go through time. Is I know there's not a direct correlation, but you can imagine hundreds retire in the band. I've never seen one that was easy. Not once. Seen a guy stop playing cricket and shift into his second career, his new career, seamlessly, ever.
Doesn't happen.
And that's, I think I went through that process unwittingly between running and not running and finding an alternative in that gap. It was really hard.
Without pushing too hard in, did you miss the running, or did you miss the associated thing that running did? And so, and allow me to preface, because it's not all about me, right? It's a little bit about me.
Sure.
No, so the one place I was free, the one place I felt comfortable was running and bowling. That was the one place that I was okay. Changing room, hated it. Couldn't do social situations. Everyone talks about how much they love the change room, and that's the bit they'll miss the most. I miss it, but I don't miss it because I was terrible at it. I couldn't do social. I couldn't do anything more than people. And so my release, my high was going out and bowling, and going out and bowling hurt pretty much every day. Is that, so which of it, is there an element of both that you can't go and run, or the running is a mechanism to make you feel alive, because it's gonna hurt a little bit? Is there a where's your weights?
I mean, sometimes it hurts a lot, depending on what you were doing that day, how far you were going, what sort of session you were doing. But I don't know what the balance between them was, because I'm trying to get back into it now, and it's not going well, for a lot of reasons, but primarily to do with the injury. But it's I'm seriously, I've recognized the need for an alternative to it. So that definitely swings me much more closely to it's not the running, it's what the running does, right? It's the time, the pain, for sure, the sense of achievement, the being alone, the coping strategy that it provides for me, and I've come to believe that is replaceable. That if I find something else, I don't know, stand-up paddleboarding, canoeing, because I live on water, right? So that's the route I'm going. Mountain biking, something like that, because I've got to find something that provides the time, the effort, the pain, the weight loss strategy, the being in shape, the being fit. And so I do think that it's not running in itself. Running just is the way that I did it, because that's what was accessible to me. I probably could have done any of those other kind of endurance things, right? The only one I did a lot of when I was still doing triathlons, a lot of triathlons, was cycling, as in road cycling. I have no desire to do that again. It always felt unsafe and unsatisfying.
That is a terrible, the UK and how cars treat cyclists.
Terrifying.
Okay? Mate, that is
terrifying.
And a country that has no helmet law, that's up to everybody.
And there's no relaxation in it.
No.
When you run, you can let your mind go all over the place. You can look around. When you cycle, you cannot do that, because traffic, potholes, roads, hedges, narrowness, stop streets, stop lights. You've got to be on it all the time. you don't get to veg out. When you run, you get to veg out. When you swim, you do. But swimming to me is always like super boring. You're just looking at the bottom of a pool. So running was important to me, and so that's why I'm looking at things that emulate that, where I don't have to be focused on the activity. I can let my mind go.
You can get one of those great big huge Zorb balls and put it on the piece of water out there and keep running. You can pull the Zorb on the wall. Job done.
Yeah. I think the other residents of this marina would love to see a middle-aged man running around in a massive beach ball in their marina.
I'll send you the bill. It's all done. We're John. No, you're welcome. That's how you charge by the minute, don't you? Every 6 minute block you charge by?
6 minutes is exactly the unit time.
Every 6 minute unit. Yeah, I've got what I think. Yeah, it's all right. I'll give you that one.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Now this, I don't want to dive. Are you religious? Are you a religious man? Are you a spiritual kind of person?
I would definitely describe myself these days as spiritual, but I'm almost violently anti-religious.
Okay. You don't have to go any further. Because that was for me, that was the perfect answer, because that's how I feel. Yeah. Religion, organized religion, too much gold, too much opulence. Let's just all be friends and get along.
Yeah.
If you want to be nice, cool, be nice, happy days. That's cool. End of.
Yeah.
But the thing for me that I'm sort of discovering more and more as I look at human behavior and what's good and what's bad, and we talk about it without realizing it. So you go for your run, and there's a good thing associated with that, and it turns into sport or running or whatever it is, whatever your pastime is. There's a meditative quality to it. There's a prayer-like time in it.
Yeah.
So Islam, you pray 5 times a day. So there's an enforced stop what you're doing, relax, and pray. And take involved in yoga and Buddhism and things like that. There's meditation and there's a concentration on movement. I fly a kite, so trying to fly a kite, that's kind of my meditation, if you like. That's me. And for you, it's your running, I guess.
Yeah. I've also done a formal meditation practice every morning to give myself structure, because as much as I'm against religion because of the underlying dogma and doctrine, I think that the conventions around religion, the community around certain religions, provide a very useful structure, a very useful community, a very useful function. I guess the Alain de Botton idea of taking the good that is inherent in religion and just applying Occam's razor to all the stuff that actually is, in my view, just wrong and garbage, would be a great thing. But there's too much cognitive dissonance in the general population, religious population, to do that. But we can a kind of an appointment to view is a necessary function, and so I set aside a time every day to have a formal practice. I don't beat myself up if I miss it, because there's no cosmic consequences. There's no God looking down wishing to strike me for missing my practice. But I do find the structure useful. But running is definitely part of my management of myself and my spiritual life. Yes.
Is it? Okay.
Or whatever I replace the running with. if I discover that I can't run.
And let me challenge you there. What do you replace that pain with that isn't going to cause you pain?
I'm not too bothered about it not causing me pain, to be honest.
Yes. But what is it? Which way is it? Is it the going for a run, or is it the feel alive through whatever that horrible bit is? Where's your weight? I'm going to go back to that.
Yeah. I think that's part of what I'm learning about myself, right? Is to see how important that is, by exploring what else I can do. So, for example, the practice of a daily meditation practice, which I do first thing in the morning, obviously doesn't involve any pain in that sense, but it does involve a discipline, and I like that discipline. I like the fact that it is a practice in the same way that going out for a training run is practice, and I see it as exactly the same thing. And what I mean by that is we can look at Eliud Kipchoge and see that it is possible, but you can't just get up and do that. I don't care how good a natural runner you are. In order to do that, you have to practice, sacrifice, be disciplined. It has to incorporate literally your whole life: sleep, training, shoes, diet, everything, if you want to achieve that. And in the same tradition, there are clearly people in this world who are more enlightened than me. I don't think that there's such a thing as pure enlightenment, at least not accessible to us as humans, but I think that there are people who are clearly the spiritual equivalent of the 2-hour marathon runner, okay? But they didn't get there through some Damascene, road to Damascus moment. They got there through practice. There are guys who have meditated, for example, for 40 years and who have done 2-month retreats, fasts, who have made a life of it. They've made a life of that practice. But for most of us, being able to run a 3-hour marathon or a level of enlightenment of spiritual practices in our lives, for most people, that's what's accessible. The 2-hour marathon's not accessible. It's accessible to this tiny fraction of people, but the 3-hour marathon is accessible to exponentially more people, and the 4-hour marathon is accessible to more or less anybody with a little bit of discipline and a little bit of training. And that's how I feel about the spiritual quest, so to speak, is that you can try for the 2-hour marathon level, but you're going to have to dedicate your entire life to that, the way Kipchoge dedicated his life to that quest, right? Or you can go, you know what, I'm definitely a 4-hour marathon guy, and so my 20 minutes of meditation in the morning, my moments of meditation through the day, my run, my gratefulness practice, my metta practice for other people, my keeping myself healthy, my compassion, my empathy for other people and acting on that empathy, these are all part of my journey. That's enough for me. So I'm going to be that guy. I'm not going to be the Dalai Lama.
Well, you're not quite the Dalai Lama, but you sell the Ferrari to buy the longboat, didn't you, Deepak?
I did. Yeah. Well, it was Robin Sharma that wrote that one, the monk who sold his Ferrari, right?
That's what I meant. I meant Robin. Thank you. I got it wrong.
Deepak Chopra is the more kind of philosophical, no mixed sayings kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't.
Robin Sharma's more. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of Deepak Chopra. Actually, he's the one.
Me neither.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. He's
Robin Sharma wrote an amazing other book. Have you read his one? It's called The 5 a.m. Club.
Oh.
Now,
do you know what the O before the 5 stands for?
No.
Oh my God, it's way too early. That's the Good Morning Vietnam. Come on, yeah.
Okay. I get up at 5 o'clock. I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. I do.
Okay. All right. Let's stop there. No, let's stop there because discipline is what gets you good at things. Without discipline, you may have goals, but without discipline, you ain't getting anywhere near them.
No.
How did? Okay, let me change. Let me ask this in a different way. How did you go from being a lawyer, which you still are? How did you go being, in essence, the ones that always win, so nobody likes lawyers, to being to becoming involved in cricket, to then and allow me to indulge you for a second. Someone that had a large part to play in my life in a short period of time. How did you go from being that billing in 6-minute cycles to, I'm not going to call you quite zen, but you've become very very mindful, and you've used all the grateful and compassion. You've used all these words that we're now able to celebrate. How is that? And also adding into the fiercely macho South African heritage that you come from. Biltong, cigarettes, and castle. I mean, they're the three things that and I know enough South Africans that I'm not pigeonholing here.
No, that's pretty accurate.
How have you that? And you use the word journey as well. How do you? What was the catalyst for that?
Okay. The first step is...
Or have you always just been a really good bloke?
No, definitely not. I mean, and part of this is, the realization that I was and am ridiculously selfish, self-absorbed, bordering on narcissistic for most of my life, right?
Am. Fine. Am. Fine.
And the thing is, waking up to the fact that you're unhappy has to beg the question, in my view, well, what are you going to do about that, right? Are you going to accept that, or are you going to look for a way of your life being better? And I mean that across a very broad spectrum of measures of what better means. But when I it was literally an overnight thing, is that kind of looking at how I was being towards the world, towards my family, my wife, my sons, everybody I interacted with, was underpinned by a kind of anger and frustration that was just boiling up and boiling up and boiling up. And a lot of this went back to the 2015 World Cup, because you'll remember at the time that the politics of cricket was so intense that India, England, and Australia had basically decided that they were going to own the game and everybody could get stuffed. Do you remember that period? And I was running the International Players Association.
And
I was the buffer.
That was about the period that my media career finished, because I got a little bit outspoken about it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember exactly, what you were saying at the time and all of these things. And same for me, being that guy who was the players' representative to a body that was run by men who thought that the players were meaningless except for their ability to produce revenue. They had no idea that the players were the product, that that position. And I'm the guy standing going, this is wrong. And to be fair, this also coincided with a period where the guys who were my board and advisors lost trust in me for various reasons. So that I was getting it from the guys who were meant to have my back and the guys that I was arguing with in front, in a situation that became untenable. And I dealt with that, right? I left cricket, I found a new career, but the seeds of kind of resentment and unhappiness that was sown through that period, they had to germinate. They came about, and I was scared to look at them for a long time, but when I eventually realized that I had to, I then asked myself the question, well, what do you do about this? And I genuinely had absolutely no idea. And here's a fortunate thing, right? In the meantime, I had hired a general manager for my esports business, for the Esports Integrity Commission that you mentioned, that role I have. I needed a manager for that business, and I hired a young woman who was used to running small businesses, who had run her own. We were spending a lot of time traveling and talking, but there was this kind of, professional distance between my employer and my employee, and me being the boss and the kind of supposed authority. And I didn't know that much about her. But we sat on a plane one day, and I had this random video from Brene Brown.
Sorry, you said on a what? What are they?
Yeah. Back in the day when we used to, travel, I had, on the way to the airport, I had watched a 2-minute cut of a Brene Brown TED Talk. I don't know if you've come across Brene Brown.
No.
But she's a professor at University of Texas, who studies shame and vulnerability. I'd never heard of her. I knew nothing about this kind of work. It just randomly came up on my Facebook feed, and I watched it. I don't know why I watched it, but honestly, it struck such a chord in me. Everything she had to say was like, oh my God, that's me. Anyway, I climbed on the plane with my colleague, in those business class seats where you kind of sit facing someone. It's like super awkward. No, you wouldn't know, right?
No, I do. It was a long time ago again. It was a really...
Exactly.
It was like, yeah. And it was 10 years ago.
We're having this small talk.
Yeah.
That around nothing at all. And I said, hey, I've just seen this really interesting video, this woman called Brene Brown. And my colleague just lit up. It's like, Brene Brown, she's like my heroine, and she's digging in her bag and going, have you read this? Have you seen this? I was like, and so I did. I took the advice, I read the books, and having looked at a ton of stuff, it was the first one that really got to me, because it didn't rely on some big moment of truth. It didn't rely on me believing in the universe or God or miracles or angels or all the other crap that I'd read that I couldn't believe in, that I just couldn't. And it made such perfect sense to me. It was research-based. Every word was like, yep, I get it. That's true, that's true, that's true. And that opened up. Like when you look at a book on Amazon and it says, people who liked this also liked these books.
Yeah.
I went down that rabbit hole for about 6 months.
Wow.
And I took what I considered to be the gold from that. Obviously, I read a lot of crap in that time as well. I listened to 1 million TED Talks. I went on a quest, literally, because I had a hole to fill. And that has continued in a more structured way ever since. And it's been remarkable. But I have to say, I still feel like a child learning to walk in this world. That I'm at the start of something, and that it's a hell of a cliche, but the path, the journey is the destination. I don't believe that there's enlightenment at the end of this. I think that there is enlightenment in little chunks along the path, but there's no prize at the end. The prize is the journey, and it's difficult, but I like it.
You said it earlier in terms of it's just a foothill after foothill after foothill, and that's exactly what you're saying now. There is no top of the hill. You're just like, all right, next bit. Next bit. Yeah.
But each of those bits is kind of joyful. Some of them are, horrendously painful. You go through a multitude of phoenix processes. Those moments of like getting burned out in the fire. There's this wonderful saying by Pema Chodron. In fact, I always have sayings. I'll show you. I'll move the camera now just for the sake. So I used to have a TV here, right, in this space over here.
Yeah.
But I don't watch TV, so I took the TV out, and I put sayings in there that I'm trying to learn to embed in my psyche until it's not like learning them off by heart. It's making sure that they're in my heart
Yeah.
And as soon as I feel like I've got one, I take it away and I put a new one there. But the one that I'm thinking of right now, that really kind of struck home for me there, was it's only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation that we can find what's indestructible in us. And that's what I think that, parts of this whole thing is that we've got to be willing to go there. We've got to be willing to experience some pretty intense and dark pain about ourselves to strip away all the crap and layers that we've put on ourselves over a lifetime in order to present ourselves better to the world, to be people that contribute rather than suck away. And part of that is absorbing pain and exhaling happiness, instead of what so many people are trying to do is desperately inhale the happiness and expel the pain. The opposite works better.
You're quite look from the first time we discussed things on telephone. We didn't meet for a long time. We talked on telephone and stuff for a long time. And look, there's so many cricketers that you have in your memory and your ability to the people of places and events and stuff that happen. But your the thing that sort of struck me was always the compassion, the listening, the element of we can do something for you, and that's a projection sometimes of, and this is what I like. Again, I'll go trying to put a little hole in your hair. That's exactly why you were reading, you watched that movie, that little 2-minute clip on shame, because if there was something on shame and failure and whether it be an avoidance or how to deal with or what it's like, I would watch that, because I know what shame is, and I know what failure is, and I know what and I know and I have that. And there's an element that I think there's an element in a lot of us that's a motivating factor. Like, I want to be successful and I want to be liked, and if I can have success, I will be successful and I will be liked. So there's a disconnect between your personality and your performance, which is dangerous. But I see your reason for watching that.
Yeah.
But you
I mean, there must have been. Yeah. There must have been.
You had a greater ability at that. So we started talking in 2010. And I think I've met you face to face maybe twice. Maybe once.
It was a couple, because we met I remember at Worcester one day when you were commentating for BBC, and then one other occasion. I'm trying to remember, but more formal.
I know. I remember Worcester, and there would have been a PCA that night. Anyway, they sung. I remember the band. They sung, and I sang with them part of the chorus. Anyway,
that's
something about dance. Anyway, it was a good night. So we met, but so you're kind of talking about this little. I don't want to call it enlightenment, but this sort of change of cognition, change of matter in and matter out. Starting around 2015, but we were talking way back in 2010. You have an ability, and you've created giants. A part of some of the people that you've met and you've had interactions with, you have created giants that a lot of the other sporting world are now hopping on their shoulders. You were there when Trescothick, the first cricketer, had John Kerwin, the New Zealand, the All Black, who talked about it openly, and that was it. And then
I remember it well.
Me too. And then Trescothick was the next giant that we now sit upon his shoulders, because he gave us that platform.
Absolutely. He really did. Yeah, remarkable.
What was, without getting too personal upon it, what was, you were involved in that. Yeah. You and the PCA were involved in that. I'm sure Jason Ratcliffe was in there in a holistic, in a group kind of, we're gonna do this, and how do you want to portray this? How do you want to be remembered? Kind of, well, it's easy to look at now and go, how do you want to be remembered? He's a giant. How did that play out from your side?
I think, like all these, it was such a surprise and so outside my experience that my reaction to any kind of situation like that is to study it. So for me, it was to read and talk to as many people about these issues as possible, because if somebody had said to me, tell me about depression, tell me about anxiety, tell me about these things, I wouldn't have had a clue. I was not that guy, right? It's probable that I was suffering myself from some form of illness, but I was not aware of that, right? So you saw, but you didn't see parallel? Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I had that kind of pressure. I mean, obviously, I'm not, an opening batsman in front of a crowd at the MCG screaming for my head, right? But there are moments in people's lives that have that magnitude. So they're not a measure. They're like a gas will fill a room no matter how much gas you put in there. It's still a room full of gas. It's just sometimes, there's more gas. So I could sort of recognize what Trez was going through at the time, but what really brought it home to me, because it was very academic for me, right, is that there was an incident for him, and I lived in Bristol and he lived in Taunton or near Taunton, and there was an incident where I was the only person within distance where I had to go and help him out with something, a crisis that wasn't a crisis for me. It was something really easy to deal with, but it was a massive crisis for him because of the state he was in at the time. And it was seeing him physically in that state. I was like, man, this is so much worse than I had given it credence for in my head. I took it so much more seriously. And for me, what that means in any area of my life is study it, understand it, put the work in, get your head around this. I'm very much in my head, right? I would say my heart has only come into the picture in the last 2.5 years of my life. I don't think that's strictly true. I always think that I did have a degree of compassion, but I didn't recognize it as such. And I think that there was that incident, and then you'll recall the incident around a dear colleague of yours and friend of mine who had tremendous difficulty with gambling issues, right? Again, I didn't understand the severity of that until I was handing over cash to loan sharks at 10 o'clock at night in tube stations in London, or dealing with serious, potentially criminal issues to resolve problems for somebody who in every other respect was a high achiever, intelligent, on top of things, in all aspects of life apart from this one, and trying to understand that weakness, that addiction, weakness being a terrible word to use, but that's, again, my perception of it at the time, and learning. And so when I faced my own crisis, my instinct was to study, to learn, to understand. And I think that we can do a lot worse than that. I was fortunate to have a colleague who understood these things and who was able to change our relationship from boss to employee to teacher friend and to take that on, to look at me and not run a million miles after seeing the reality of who was this guy she was working for, who turned out to be, to have feet of clay, as I perceived it. She didn't take it that way, but I was fortunate. So I had a good teacher. I had that.
She saw you,
discipline to do the work. She saw me.
Yeah.
She saw me. She didn't see the projection of me that the world, that the world saw. But I also took the chance in revealing myself to her on the basis of what the hell. I'm in such a bad place that it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If she sees this person and thinks, what an ass, or what a repulsive human being, I'm prepared to take that chance, because I can't see any other way forward at this point.
Okay, given that, Sheila, given that you already had the opening because you had a link in common.
Yeah.
That 2-minute TED Talk YouTube stream, and so there was already an opening there, and that's that little beautiful. Do you find yourself using completely different words than you used to? I use beautiful a lot.
All the time.
Yeah.
I can use the word love without that little creepy voice in my head going, what are you talking about, you soft prick?
I reply to so many text messages and I just put a kiss, a little X. Like, I send a kiss. Doesn't matter who it is, I send a kiss. And I've done that forever because I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, here's something I'm sending your way. It's a affirmation, it's an endearment.
But even the word affirmation, that a year ago, somebody used that word. I could literally feel the sneer creeping up towards my mouth, and I go, don't sneer. It's, affirmations are good, and I didn't really believe it until it becomes part of your life, and you understand it, and you accept its value.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about being at the start of a journey, being the baby steps guy, kind of staggering around, because there's still so much to learn and accept in this sense of acceptance that you're enough, and that if people can't take you as your authentic self, stuff them. That's a hard thing for a professional advisor, a problem solver, because that's my job, right?
Yeah.
To project, to allow to be projected to people. It's taken me, and it's still taking me, time to be comfortable in that, in me, in that projection of myself as what I think of is my authentic self, because my professional veneer was very, very strong.
How much? Okay, so this is me projecting to you, because I know through this chat and through previous chats, I see you. I see. How much energy does it take to be the extrovert in the room when you're an introvert?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
To the point where I literally would go and sit in toilets for 20 minutes for half an hour to be on my own after those. We used to, remember all the pre-season county visits we used to do? So Ratters, me, Angus. So we'd be driving around 18 counties for the month of March doing these endless meetings. And often Rats and when he would say, hey, let's share a car. And I would often make an excuse not to do that because I knew that I needed the time in the car on my own to decompress from being in that room with 25 guys and my colleagues and the kind of banter and being the guy, and doing the presentations. I've never minded that stuff, but it's not me. That's a projection of me that fulfills a role, a necessary role, but then I have to go and get my energy back, because that drains the crap out of me. It still does. You know, I speak to audiences all the time, anything from 50 to 1,000 people, and honestly it doesn't bother me. I'm perfectly comfortable in that environment, but it drains me. Drains me to the point where guys, oh, let's go for a drink, let's go for dinner. I'm like, nah. I'm going back to my hotel room and I'm going to sit on my own for the next 3 hours because I need to do that.
Trying to get some room service or dial in some fried chicken or something.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I always just get room service, right? Because I don't want to go and sit, because there's a chance that some guy's going to come up and want to talk to me, and I don't want that.
And you have to put the veneer back on. You have to put the show face back on.
Exactly, and you know that I get an enormous satisfaction from being a problem solver. Because that's been my life. But there's a downside to that, right? Is that as that person, and I think it's a male thing as well, and it's a lawyer thing. So I get this kind of double whammy of living in an extrovert world, or an extrovert dominated world, being a lawyer, being a problem solver, being a man. So you get all these things rolled up into the fact that I barely listened to people because I was listening with my mouth open, ready to tell them what the solution to their problem was.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm only now realizing that, mostly I didn't understand their problem, and that actually in many, many, many instances, all they needed was somebody to listen. And I was absolutely terrible at that.
There's some wonderful research / stereotype that fits that exactly. And in problem solvers, talk to a guy, and he will tell you that you need to put another brace there, you need another couple of screws in there. And he will tell you that you need to, or that needs to be leveled out, and you need to get some of that quick set concrete, and you'll be fine with that. Men this is stereotypes, and this is through research, this is through study. Men are problem solvers. You talk to us and we give you a solution.
Yeah,
that's not what women need.
No.
When a guy talks to us, often it is a solution, because they've offered up. Because guys are more reluctant to offer up a scenario that there does require a solution, because that's an alpha male, that's a masculinity toxic thing. But then I catch myself, my wife will talk to me, and I'll be like, well, why don't you just do that? And I'll cut her off. And as opposed to going, listen, let you discover it, because so many things are discovered when you're talking.
Yeah.
And by listening, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and by listening to someone talk, it's there in their words, and it will be their idea when they get there. But I'll cut them off and I'll go, oh, just do that. It's fine. Yeah. Which doesn't.
It's exact. You're describing my whole life. That's exactly what I've done, and unlearning that and change that. And another, what's added to that, not as a difficulty, but definitely a challenge, is where you've been that guy, where you've been that problem solver, where you've been the strength in a situation, a provider, to allow people to see you as something else, as vulnerable, as human, as fallible, as all of those things, is really, really difficult. I feel like that's something I'm still kind of poking at, because who wants to see their knight in shining armor as a clunky, wheezing human being who has the same vulnerabilities and problems and failings and weaknesses as you?
But
that's a tough one. And
I think
so the two, listening and being vulnerable, being available in an emotional and meaningful sense has been and remains a real challenge to me.
I love and have done. I love social media, and I know you spend a little bit of time there, but you're not a huge contributor, if you like, in terms of throwing out a philosophy, a theory, an anecdote, or whatever. But you're there, you're lurking around, and there's some. I see some good articles that you pop in on, say, Twitter. Now, I have used social media, blogging, etc. for the longest. So I used to live blog after days play. I would be playing international cricket, and I would go home, go back to the hotel and write 600, maybe 1,200 words, and that would be up before we'd start play the next day, which was kind of cool for me, because that I now realize that was an enforced self-reflection, which is much bigger than a team debrief. And I could move on to the next day. So the blogging actually helped me play cricket, which helped me have more success, which means I had to blog more. Cool. All right, great. Cool.
Yeah.
But I've always tried to, and this is exactly the conundrum, is that yesterday I tweeted that this airline thing had made me cry. Yeah. Because
I saw that. Yeah.
I couldn't get home. And then again, up at 5 a.m. to get a flight, to get another flight, to get another flight, to try and get a flight to London. That fell apart. Some more tears, but I've understood that because I've spoken about that part of my life, whether it be the anxiousness, the anxiety, whether it be social, whether it be situational, whether it be work or life related, whether it just be a one rogue cloud, which is a website I must create. One rogue cloud.
Yeah, one rogue cloud. Yeah. That's a good idea.
I
like that.
Create that website, and it's stories about how to dodge that freaking cloud and how to make that cloud. Yeah. I need to do that. I've always been, from the first time, on the shoulders of giants, on the shoulders of Trescothick and Kerwin and the guys that have spoken about MH, their health. I've always gone, right, I've kind of sold that side of my life already now. And I kind of feel a responsibility, that's a bad word, but to share that junk, and I say junk, it's my life, and it's junk. Sure. Some people will look at it and go, what's he sharing that for? But I feel compelled to share that because it isn't rainbows and unicorns and fairies.
Definitely isn't.
And it doesn't always swing, and it doesn't always dance, and it doesn't always take the edge. And I've found that a strength of mine to be able to do that, to take the mask off, to take that and share that. And you can either follow or not follow, but I think there is a power that other people perceive in.
Yeah, I hope that's true. And I think it is,
It's and there's a, okay, we started talking tonight. We got talking on Twitter, DMs, because I want to, tomorrow, there's nothing happening tomorrow. Basically, the whole world's shut down. Yeah. And I wanted to talk to people about life, about what makes them and what is them. And I've enjoyed talking to you, and I'm probably going to have to wrap this up, but I want to spend more time talking to you because it's so damn interesting, and we haven't even covered off 2015. We've got to 2015. We haven't even got past that. We haven't even got to the E games, which is just gone ridiculous. And the only sport that's being played, and they're now doing F1.
Literally the only thing going on. I know.
They're now doing F1 races on TV using F1 drivers in a simulator. Love it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to see this later, but there is this alpha toxic. That's a brand name, Alpha Mayo.
Alpha Mayo. It's got like chili in it or something.
Alpha Mayo. Yeah.
Chili.
There's this toxic
testosterone.
Masculinity that just has to plateau. It has to come back down. And I know I'm not trying to take. This is where I'm going back to university. I said to you before. This is what this is about. Is about exploring and becoming okay with using the words like beautiful, and using words like love, and telling your friends, your mates, that you love them, and showing genuine compassion and gratitude, vice versa. I redefined success about 3 months ago. A whole philosophy. I had a whole look at my life and what is good and what is successful. And I had a massive, great, big, huge change. I've redefined success as being able to give and receive a smile. Being able to look at someone and just give them a smile because you want to, and they give you a smile because they want to, and you take it and you allow it to warm you, and you allow that to just sit across your chest and just butterfly away. And I think, and I was on a team building, like a team culture, partly to do with the Players Association, part of the onward career progression stuff with Deacon. And there's a load of coaches sitting around, a load of first-class coaches, guys that have done some international stuff. There's some serious guys in the room. And someone asked, current coach, great guy, love him to bits, asked, what does a good team look like? So Ian McGeechan started answering the question, and I kind of just put my hand up and said, look, if you can start with that success being defined as the ability to give and take a smile, you're in a hell of a good starting place, aren't you?
Especially in a dressing room.
Yeah, you can give a smile and then have one back. Yeah, I think you're in a place that the New Zealand cricket team seems to be in, and I'm not picking on them just because I know some of the guys. No. Outside look at them, but there seems to be this love, this aroha in that New Zealand team, that they are more than teammates. And I think there's something special there. And to finish this one off, if you don't mind, I think you, Ian, and I think you have a lot. A lot of cricketers in the UK have a lot to be grateful for because of the work that you have done, and they now get to stand on your shoulders because of what you've done. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your.
Well, it's nice to hear that. I want to show you one more thing as you finish. Just because you're going to go and get those weights that you loaded up that are down by the. Go and get those weights. Hell, I've just torn something that I didn't want to tear because I'm an idiot.
Oh.
But hang on.
I'm saying.
Now I think.
Relax.
I'm going to have to print out my lovely sign again here because I forgot that I used sticky tape instead of blue tack because I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But this is a saying from Pema Chodron, so that I think is really, really important. Like there. There.
We don't set out to see the world. We set out to wonder how other people are doing, how other people are doing, and to reflect on how our. Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
If we can absorb that, each one of us, and have an impact on another person.
Do you know what that?
We're away.
Does? Do you know what that statement does?
Yeah.
It makes us stop telling ourselves the biggest lie we can tell ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't care what they think. That statement stops the biggest lie we can tell ourselves. I don't care what they think. Whatever. We all care. We all care what they think.
Of course we do.
It's just hard. It's just harder to be liked than it is to be not liked. We all care. It's just an easy cop out, and that's a beautiful line.
Yeah.
Ian, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it was great to see you.
I love your boat.
I love my boat.
I hope.
I
I want to see photos of you meditating on the top deck in the sunshine. I know it's a bit chilly at the moment. A little bit chilly.
It's pretty cold outside, but it's a beautiful day. I'll be going out shortly.
Yeah.
But
I do want to talk to you more about your meditation, and I want to talk more about your PGA stuff and more about your esports stuff, because
of course. Well, anytime. We're not going anywhere. I'm stuck here. Hopefully you'll get home, because that'd be great. But I'm kind of here for at least 3 weeks.
Can you fuel up? Can you fuel up? Just come across a few oceans, pick me up, and bring me back. Is there a chance?
Yeah. I think the high seas are probably a bit much. If I could get there by river,
mate,
no problem.
A dead calm. There's loads of canals. There's loads of canals on the way. There's dead calm out there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. The Southern Pacific is renowned for its calmness, but I will hope rather just send my best wishes for something to open up and get you home.
Ian,
that would be good, and I'll be here if we want to chat again.
Mate, I do because I've enjoyed that. It's
cool.
It's nice kind of looking at a reflection sometimes and not fighting against the world, because there's a lot of black and white and not enough grey, and it's nice to come across a similar colour. It's nice to come across the two colours.
It is.
You know what I mean?
And we've got to stop. We've really this is the opportunity, right? The new normal that's coming for us, because the old normal is gone. And I hope that new normal includes this kind of long-form conversation and excludes shouting at each other across social media platforms. That would be nice.
Now, you said that before we started recording, and I'm glad glad we get to finish on that one. Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ed.
And
great to see you.
I'll speak soon.
Alrighty. Cheers.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome.